Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, February 22nd. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryTV.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. House Republican leaders quietly unveiled their Violence Against Women's Act's reauthorization bill on February 22nd, a proposal that differs from what the Senate passed last week, namely in the omission of LGBT protections and its modified language targeting Native American victims of domestic abuse. The GOP proposal was posted on the House Rules Committee website, along with an announcement that the committee will begin moving the bill forward in a February 26th hearing. Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers from Washington will sponsor the bill, and the House is expected to bring it to a full vote later next week. The bill proposes compromise language aimed at helping Native American victims of violence. Under the Senate bill, tribal courts would gain new authority to prosecute non-Native American men who abuse Native American women on reservations. The House bill also grants that new authority, but adds a caveat that would allow those people to move their cases to a federal court if they feel their constitutional rights aren't being upheld. In other news, Republicans have offered a number of reasons why they oppose the Violence Against Women's Act. Some think it's unconstitutional. Others argue that it's just a meaningless bill with a patriotic title. On February 20th, Senator Chuck Grassley added a new one. Native Americans supposedly aren't capable of holding fair trials. Last week, Grassley was one of just 22 senators, all Republican men, who voted against reauthorizing VAWA. During a town hall meeting in Indianola, a woman asked him to explain his vote. Grassley responded that the legislation is unconstitutional.
One provision that non-Native Americans can be tried in tribal court. And why that's a big thing? Because of the constitutionality of it, for two reasons. One, you know how the law is that if you have a jury, the jury is supposed to be a reflection of society. So a non-Native, well, maybe I better back up and say this is trying to deal with a real problem. And I don't deny that there's a problem there. You get non-Native, or you get non-Indians, let me say, to make it easy. You get non-Indians going into a reservation and violating a woman. They need to be prosecuted. They aren't prosecuted. So the idea behind this bill is we'll try them in tribal court. But under the laws of our land, you've got to have a jury that is a reflection of society as a whole, and on an Indian reservation, it's going to be made up of Indians, right? So the non-Indian doesn't get a fair trial.
There is actually no requirement that juries reflect society as a whole. The Sixth Amendment requires juries to be drawn from the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. And the Supreme Court decisions establish that criminal defendants also have a right to a jury which is drawn from a fair cross-section of the community where the trial court convenes to hear their case. But this does not entitle anyone to be tried by a jury that reflects the whole of American society. A federal lawsuit involving the rights of Indian tribes to hunt game on open and unclaimed lands has been filed by the Skokomish tribe against the state of Washington. The Kitsap Sun reports that the lawsuit claims actions by state agencies and officials have denied tribal members access to their legitimate hunting areas, as well as impose sanctions on tribal members and promote a discriminatory scheme of hunting regulations that favor non-Indians. The lawsuit asks the federal court to define the extent of the tribe's hunting and gathering rights, identify the territory where the tribe may operate, confirm the tribe's exclusive and co-concurrent management authority, and declare a tribal allocation for game, roots, and berries. The tribe also seeks an injunction to prevent state officials from interfering with tribal rights to hunt and gather roots and berries. Cherokee elder Peggy Hill was outraged after watching a video of bears endlessly circling their tiny enclosures at a privately owned zoo on the eastern Band of Cherokee Indians' Qualla boundary. Hill and other eastern Band of Cherokee Indian citizens knew they had to act, so they began pressing their tribal council to force the zoo and 2 others on the boundary to free their bears. Now it appears the leaders are ready to tackle the issue. At a meeting in February, the tribal council said it is considering a resolution introduced by Hill and supporters to revoke the zoo's licenses and require the owners to remove the bears from captivity. The council said it will study the issue and the resolution could come to a vote in its March meeting. Hill said this is the first time the Cherokee elders have publicly spoken out about the issue. Most Cherokee people have no idea what is taking place behind the bars of those roadside zoos, Hill had said, saying the elders are so appalled at the horrible treatment of these jailed bears that they decided to take action. It is the latest development in a long public campaign to close the zoos where more than 24 black, Asian, and grizzly bears are confined in cages and barren concrete pits. Attawapiskat Chief Theresa Spence isn't giving up her fight for a fully inclusive meeting between the Crown, the Prime Minister, and First Nations. Spence, who ended her 43-day hunger strike on January 24th, is part of a group taking their First Nation concerns to the United Nations. According to a statement released February 19th, the International Indian Treaty Council, along with Spence and the people of Attawapiskat First Nation, have filed an urgent action with the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. The committee will be considering the urgent action submission on February 26th. Last month, the Mille Band of Ojibwe announced plans to purchase 2 hotels in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota. Once the deal is finalized, the band will become the single largest hotel operator in the city. This deal represents a big business shift for the band. Joe Naquinabe, the Commissioner of Corporate Affairs at Mille, says Native American tribes are trying to diversify their source of revenue. Naquinabe, who heads the business side and turns profits over to the tribal government, says they'd like to own a hotel in every major U.S. market. By putting the tribe's casino profits into a new hotel venture, he says the band will become more economically secure. What was intended as a quick visit to purchase some recyclable cups for the Stillaguamish tribe's Angel of Winds Casino in Washington ended up with an agreement to collaborate in the plastic recycling venture, MicroGREEN Polymers. They fall in line with what we value in regards to doing what we can for this planet while we are here, explains Corin Andrews, CEO of the tribe's Enterprise Corporation. And that's really important to Indian tribes, protecting Mother Earth. The Stillaguamish tribe's $5 million investment in the company reflects part of a larger effort by MicroGREEN to expand its production of recyclable plastic products. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.